Welcome to Valley Newsline. I'm your host, Ron Whitlock. On the program today, Dallas and Houston conservative talk show host and Senator Dan Patrick of Houston. Dan,
good to be here.
Good to be here. Welcome to the U.S.-Mexico border.
Yes.
You have toured now for a 3-day period. Second highest vote total in Texas for individuals running campaigns to become a senator for the state of Texas. Second only in vote totals, 117,000 to Senator Wentworth of San Antonio's 134,000 votes. A phenomenon that has burst onto the Texas political scene. Our first interview with Senator Patrick. Senator Patrick, you're saying that we are an army of conservatives, and that's referring to your audience and your constituents. Did they vote for Dan Patrick, or did they vote for change?
They voted for change. Ron, what happened was I had a primary where there were 4 of us in the Republican primary. 2 were longtime House members, chairman of committees, and 1 a Houston City Council person. And when the race began, no one gave me a chance. They said, he's the radio guy, he can't win. And when it was over, they all said, well, of course he won. He was the radio guy. The truth was that we stunned the political establishment in Austin and in Washington because we won the primary without a runoff in a 4-way race, almost unheard of. Probably historically, we had the highest vote total in a 4-way runoff with real candidates. Sometimes you have people who just are on the ballot, but these were serious candidates. One of my opponents spent $1.3 million and got 8% of the vote. But we got 70% of the vote in the primary and won. And I've told
spent how much just compared to
we spent about $600,000 total. And what it was all about, it wasn't about Dan Patrick. It was about change. You know, back in '94, the Democrats were run out of political office in America under the contract with America, Newt Gingrich, because the Democrats had not resolved the issues that the people wanted resolved. This year, nationally, the Republicans were run out. They got a lot shorter leash than the Democrats got, but the Republicans were run out for the most part because people want problems solved, and they don't care if it's the Democrats or the Republicans. They want problems solved. You know, I characterize myself more as a Mr. Smith goes to Washington kind of candidate. And some of the establishment doesn't like that. And that's why no one gave me a chance. And that's why they still want to refuse the success we had. And I think that the Republicans and the Democrats, the quote establishment political system, is missing out on where the people are. And one of the great opportunities I've had already is to come down here in the Rio Grande Valley because I've gotten a chance to really get to know some of my Democrat colleagues, Senator Lucio and Senator Hinojosa, who I have great respect for. They're fine people. Some of the House members, the people, you've seen me talking in depth to a lot of people here. And what I have found is the people in the Rio Grande Valley, it doesn't make any difference if they're Democrats. They have so much in common with what we have 350 or 60 miles from here in the larger cities in the state. And I really come out of this with great optimism that Senator Lucio and I are going to work together, and Senator Hinojosa, for historic legislation on key issues.
Now, Texas Austin American Statesman, probably the #1 political newspaper, that being the newspaper of record, the daily paper in the state capital, says that, are you a champion of an army of conservatives or just a bully with a microphone in front of a mob?
Well, I'm in the media. In fact, you should feel good. I'm proving that people in the media really can go into the state capitol and solve problems, which I've always said it's not that hard. Just do the right thing. I really don't pay attention to what people say negatively. There are always going to be people who take shots. My responsibility is to represent the people of my district, to represent the people of Texas, and to do the right thing. And much of what has been said is not even true. The whole idea that I'm anti-Hispanic or anti-immigration is ridiculous on the surface. I was supported by all the Republican Hispanics in my Senate district, almost 100%. I have great support from Democrats.
Did you have any major campaign contributors who are Hispanic?
My average contribution was around $100. I mean, I was a people's candidate, so I didn't have major contributions from anyone in what you would think of during the primary.
Do you have any Hispanics on your staff, either campaign or in your Senate staff?
I don't have any Hispanics on my staff. I do not.
You plan to consider them as a...
I would consider anybody.
One of your colleagues, Whitmire, there in the legislature,
Right.
Appearing on your program, hung up on you when talking about the issue of stalling vehicles in Houston.
Right.
Whitmire claims he hung up on you when you said, "Don't you think anyone traveling our freeway should be required to speak English?"
Right.
What happened there?
Yeah, no, misquote. I said
Misquote.
anyone who has a driver's license in Texas should be required to speak English, and I believe that. I am not one of those conservative Republicans who believes we should build a wall from Brownsville to El Paso. I think one of the reasons that the Republicans were wiped out in the congressional seats and Senate seats is there was a lot of harsh rhetoric that sounded anti-Hispanic coming out of Washington, and it was a great mistake. I'm also not one of those who believes we should ship out 10 million people. It's impossible, it's not practical. We don't want to split up families, and we need the workers. However, I think that I represent the view of many Texans, whether they're Hispanic, Anglo, or black, and that is we can't absorb another 10 million into our country. Our hospital systems here in the Rio Grande Valley, as well as where I'm from in Harris County, are crushing under the weight of health care. Our educational system is overrun right now, and superintendents can't balance their budgets. Our criminal justice system is overloaded. About 1/3 of the people in jail in Texas are illegal. In Harris County, Houston, where I'm from, during the last 18 months, there were 12,000 crimes committed by illegals. Here in the Rio Grande Valley, I know that that's a major issue with the local police department. That's why I've been talking with the police chiefs and the mayors. My plan is, I think what Juan Escobar, who's a state representative now, spent 30 years with Border Patrol, my plan, and Senator Lucio would agree, we need to stop drugs from coming into this country. Where we have major ports of entry, we probably need some additional fencing and walls. We need more people, but not across the border. God gave us the Rio Grande as a natural barrier. We need more people on the ground. We need more local sheriffs. We need more Border Patrol. Do you know in the McAllen sector, we only have about 25 agents covering 82 miles. And when a border agent arrests somebody, he takes them into McAllen, which he means he leaves that sector, and now the drug dealers know when he picks up a couple of kids coming across the river or people coming here for a job, that sector is wide open to drug trade. This must stop. So we need to secure the border. We need to create a guest worker program so that people who want to work can come in here to work. And that's what we need to do. It's really simple. And that's something that I believe everyone supports. And it's not going to impact the economy, Ron. Let me tell you what. If we continue the current system we have, wide open, come as you go, we will go bankrupt. Do you know how much our Health and Human Service budget is in the state of Texas?
Huge.
36% of our budget. We spend $68 billion in our total budget for 1 year in Texas. 36% of that, almost $27 billion, is Health and Human Services. It's falling under the crush of taking care of people who have no insurance. And eventually that will bankrupt us. Our education budget, higher education and secondary ed and elementary ed, is about 54% of our budget. Education and Health and Human Services are 90% of our budget. We'll never get control of that if hundreds of thousands continue to pour into our state and go into our emergency rooms and go into our schools with no ability to pay. The hardworking Hispanics who live in the Rio Grande Valley and across the state, and Anglos and blacks, are all American citizens, are carrying the weight of that, and we no longer can carry the weight of that. So whatever economic assets we're getting from people coming here, and we need the workers, what are being negated by the cost of the taxpayers and the cost of local government.
There's been a lot of conversation in the state capitol about your relationship with the Lieutenant Governor.
Yes.
Lieutenant Governor Dewhurst, and by virtue of the fact that there's so much coverage of your potential for running for governor, an office that he obviously covets, there's a concern on the part of especially your supporters that you're going to be minimalized in your effort to serve your constituents because of potential pending race against Lieutenant Governor, the head, the CEO of the Texas Senate, in his plans to occupy the Texas governor's mansion. Do you plan in any circumstances run against Lieutenant Governor Dewhurst?
You know, a lot of people have said a lot of things that have turned out not to be true from me not winning the election and from me being put in a closet by the Lieutenant Governor. Well, as it turned out, there was an article in the Houston Chronicle this week. Dan Patrick gets plum committee assignments. The lieutenant governor has gone out of his way to work with me.
He's been on your program in the past.
Yes, been on my program in the past, and we don't always agree.
You criticized him on your
absolutely.
program.
See, I believe, Ron, that look, I'm a conservative Republican, but we've made a lot of mistakes as a party, just like Democrats have, and we need to speak about those issues. You know, I will agree with the lieutenant governor or Governor Perry the majority of the time, but we're not going to agree all the time. And I believe in good, open, honest debate and disagreement, and then move on to the next issue. And so the governor has put me on Health and Human Services, which, as we said in the last segment, is 36% of our budget. I'm on Education and Higher Ed, which I requested. So I'm on the 3 committees that comprise 90% of our budget. I'll have a voice and a vote for the people, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, the people of Texas. I'm also Vice Chair of International Relations with Senator Lucio, which I'm really excited about because he's a great guy. And we're going to work together because I'm interested in border issues. And then I'm on Intergovernmental Relations, where appraisal caps will go to, because one of the big issues I'm concerned about are the property taxes in Texas. We are taxing people out of their homes.
Quote, I'm not in favor of allowing a foreign contractor to come in to build a toll road using eminent domain. Your position on the Trans-Texas Corridor?
It's one of those areas I disagree with leadership. You know, when I went out and campaigned, I've never seen one issue, literally, where 99% of the people I talked to or on my radio show or that I've visited around the state are against. There's something that just doesn't feel right about taking land from Texans and giving it to a foreign country and letting them charge us a toll. There's something that doesn't feel very Texan about that. Now look, we have tremendous transportation needs. Our population in this state is going to grow from about 23 million where we are to about 40 million over the next several decades. We have tremendous transportation. We need rail, for example, in the Rio Grande Valley.
Which is part of the Trans-Texas Corridor.
We need rail to get the goods from here around the state. We needed some more direct flights out of Harlingen Airport, for example. There are all kinds of transportation needs. Our big cities are clogged. Even smaller cities like Austin are clogged with traffic, as you know, when you're there. But is every new road going to be a toll road? And are we going to turn it over to foreign interest? And so I think we really have to take a look at this plan before we implement it. The other thing, Ron, that a lot of people are upset about in rural Texas is dividing communities. Because right now in rural Texas, there are a lot of families, like the Rio Grande Valley. The one thing that I've been so impressed with being here, and I'm coming back, is the passion people have for this area. They love
the border,
this part of the border. They love it. They love this area.
In the Rio Grande Valley.
And the reason they love it is because there's a history here. Well, that's the same way in a lot of rural Texas. Well, imagine a community now, the toll road goes through and there's not an exit for 25 miles. It'll be like the Old West trying to find a place to ford the river. School districts will be split up. You won't be able to go to the other games. You won't be able to go see your uncle and aunt without driving 25 miles up to the exit, 25 back, where maybe it'll be like the Berlin Wall in some cases. Talk about a wall across the border, and people down here not wanting that. And I don't want a wall across the entire border either. That toll road could divide the state. So I don't feel good about that. I think we have to find a better solution.
Now, the Hispanic community predominantly come to the Rio Grande Valley as they're first out of Mexico, then they spread out across the United States. That's a given. They are the nation's #1 top minority group, surpassing blacks in the 2000 census. Can any person running for statewide office in Texas or in the nation expect to be elected without the Hispanic vote?
No, not in the future. Probably still in the short term, but not in the short term or long term for sure. I've said on my radio show for years that within 12 to 16 years, which would be 3 or 4 presidential elections, that Hispanics will control the White House. And I believe that because if you add the electoral votes of California and Texas and Florida, or just Texas and California, New Mexico and Arizona, which will all have tremendous and have tremendous Hispanic communities now, that will determine who wins the White House. The Hispanics are going to be able to, I'm not necessarily saying that means an Hispanic will be in the White House, and that will happen also. What I'm suggesting is that they will really call the shot of who is there. So someone's going to have to reach out to the Hispanic voters. But let me tell you, Ron, and this is what I said earlier, I believe, and again, I leave this trip with great optimism, we can resolve these problems on the border because there's just common ground. Look, Hispanics are an important part of our culture, an important part of our economy. Hispanics are a vibrant part of this country, and they share some of the same values that conservative Republicans are. Godly people, they believe in marriage, they believe in family, They have great work ethic. They believe in education. They want their children to succeed. I think what we're going to see in this country as we move forward politically.
But Dan, the anti-immigration comments made by predominantly freshman congressmen running in the Northeast, shut down the border, security,
They're just wrong. They're
all
wrong.
of that. By virtue of that, the Hispanic, the ones that I talked to, are saying they are leaving. They were going into the Republican Party. They were excited about it because of the outreach of President George Bush. But by virtue of what's been happening with immigration issues,
I understand. I agree.
and all of
I
that,
can understand.
they are abandoning your party, and they may not come back because once.
Well,
once
I think that's one of the
burned-
reasons I won. And I had Hispanic support in my area, and that's one of the things I'm passionate about, Ron. See, I think those Republicans who used that rhetoric were wrong, and a lot of them lost elections, and they don't have much clout anymore. I understand where some Hispanics would feel like, gosh, what happened here? And that's why I believe my policy, it really makes sense. Secure the border. We're not building a wall. We're not kicking out 10 million people, but we've got to know who's here, and we have to have an orderly way to come to this country, and we have to have a guest worker program. And more important, I've told Senator Lucio, I believe that to resolve this problem, that Democrats and Hispanics and Republican Hispanics have to lead the way. This cannot be shoved down the throats of all Americans, particularly Hispanics, by Anglo-conservative Republicans. It has to be, I want Senator Lucio, Senator Hinojosa to take the lead on this, and I will follow and support them if we can agree, and I think we're very close. Juan Escobar, a new representative up in the Kingsville area, 30 years on Border Patrol. He and I have had great discussions this week, and your other area reps. I believe that removes racism from this issue, and I'm concerned if we don't resolve this problem, that you're going to see racial tensions between Hispanics and illegal Hispanics, between Anglos and Hispanics, between blacks and Hispanics. Because when people are denied jobs, when people feel like there's one group that is putting pressure on them, then people get angry. And I believe our federal government, under the Bush administration and the Clinton administration before that, have allowed this situation to get out of hand. And it's out of hand. And so we have to resolve this so that we don't have racism in this country. It does not exist. People love the Hispanic culture today. I want to be sure that is preserved long term.
Democrats anticipate, just like they have had the black vote their entire, the last decades or two, to have the Hispanic vote. Do you think that ought to be a given?
No, I don't think it's a given. I don't think that the Democratic Party, see, there's all kinds of Republicans and all kinds of Democrats. For example, there are some Northeast Republicans who I don't recognize as Republicans, and there are Democrats in Texas down the Rio Grande Valley who are more conservative than some Republicans. So let's take the labels off for a second. What do the two parties stand for? I believe that the Democratic Party is really ruled by the left, that is anti-family, in some cases very secular in their positions. The Word of God is important. And when a political party chooses to put the Word of God on the side for political expediency, I think that's a great danger. And I believe that not...
You're criticizing the Democrat Party.
I'm criticizing those in control, the Hollywood left, the crazy left, the extreme left, who does not want prayer in public school, who are pro-choice, where I believe many Hispanic Democrats are pro-life.
But the Democrat Party has now approved, by virtue of controlling Congress and the House, a minimum wage increase of $2.10 per hour, of which 863,000 Texans will receive a $2.10 an hour raise. You in favor of that, opposed to that?
I'm a small business guy. I'm not in favor of forcing wages on a small business person. Most people who work minimum wage jobs, they're part-time jobs, they're students, they're not career jobs, they're stepping stones. And what I want to be sure happens, Ron, is we don't raise the minimum wage so high that some small businesses say, well, I'm just not going to hire that person. And we deny jobs.
Let's talk about some Texas issues before we run out of time. Legalization of video and casino gambling in Texas. The majority of the dollars spent in Las Vegas, most all the money spent in neighboring Louisiana, supposedly comes, we know, from the Lone Star State. The taxes are going to Louisiana. Taxes from Texans are going to Las Vegas, Nevada. Do you support the legalization of gambling in the state of Texas?
I'm one of those. I'm surely not a prude about it. always played I enjoy a great game of Texas Hold'em with my friends, but I am not for casino gambling in the state of Texas. Look, in Mississippi, when all the casinos were knocked down in Katrina, last year and a half ago, they said all these jobs were wiped out. And the average job in Mississippi was $22,000 a year in the casino. The people who run casinos make a fortune. The people who work in them don't, and many of the people who go there can't afford to be there, and they're spending their paychecks and they're 24/7.
Okay, you're an independent businessman.
Yes.
You own a radio station in Dallas.
Yes.
You LMA radio station
Right.
in Houston. Walmart wants to have Walmart banks in Walmart and basically
Yeah, they
kick
do.
out the independent banks. They have legislation going into this the end of this session. You support Walmart's ability to have Walmart banks owned by Walmart in Walmarts, and the excluding of the independent bank branches in Walmarts and other.
I
facilities.
haven't looked at the issue. But,
Should banks continue to be independent somewhat?
Oh, I
As opposed
definitely
to
believe.
connected to a
Look, I believe banks should be independent. The truth is, there aren't many left anymore who are, and most people who start small banks, I'm a little familiar with this. A lot of people who start small banks, independent banks, only start them so they can sell them out to big banking companies later. So the whole idea of independent bank, these people, I want my independent bank, so I can sell it to a big banking company, make a fortune, go to the beach.
Let's talk about your faith.
Yes.
Your quote, "My faith is the number one issue in my life."
My main mission in Austin, quite frankly, my main mission in Austin, I have to represent my voters and represent Texas, but it's really to represent Christ. That's what my main mission is.
Quote in the Austin American-Statesman article, "I never actually heard God speak." Have you actually heard God speak?
When I've said that, I've always joked that if God spoke to me, since I'm a talk show host for 20 years, he would say, "Dan Patrick, this is God. I'm a long-time listener and a first-time caller." But
And Dan, you're not listening very well.
I know, yes. I haven't seen the face of God. I haven't heard his voice, but I've sure felt his presence.
You refer to your audience on the radio station in Houston as the biggest church in Houston?
What I meant is I have the biggest church is even a church service like Lakewood or Second Baptist, they get 7, 8, 15, 16,000. But when I go on talk radio and open that mic and I'm on in Houston and Dallas, which reaches potentially 50% of the population, potentially it's the biggest church. And I don't talk about biblical issues every day, but I try to put biblical principles to the news issues of our day. That's why I look at this border issue. We have to look at it as Christ would see it as
Before
well.
you get off that, don't you believe that by bringing in your faith and wearing it on your sleeve as an elected official,
Right.
That there is some kind of a violation of the separation of church and state?
And that whole thing of separation of church and state is just ridiculous. There's nothing in the Constitution. It was a letter from Jefferson to the Danbury Baptist Church that the liberals have twisted around. If America has any problem today, it's we've lost our relationship and our respect for God. We've taken prayer to public school. We've abandoned life in the womb. Do you know, one of the bills I've authored is to ban abortion in the state of Texas when Roe v. Wade is overturned. It's a trigger bill, so when Roe v. Wade is overturned, which I believe it will be eventually, then Texas would ban abortion immediately. I'm not out there trying to convert anyone. I'm not out there trying to preach to anyone. I just want to talk about biblical principles in our lives. I believe this nation has been blessed because we have been the most godly nation in the history of the planet. We really have been. And we're a great nation, and we're a nation of godly people who sometimes lose our way. I surely lose my way. Our government, by some extreme decisions by men and women in black robes, have led us astray. And I think it's right for an elected official not to be a preacher and not to proselytize or be an evangelist, but I believe we should stand and speak for our faith and let people know where we are.
A 3-day tour of the Rio Grande Valley, all the way from McAllen
To Roma.
Rio Grande City, Roma.
Right.
What have you learned during your 3-day visit tour of the border, and have you eased your opinion in any way that maybe were staunch in one way, and have they come to a little bit more of a middle ground by virtue of your tour here?
Quite frankly, what I have learned is that I think I'm right on target with what the people here want. I think that if I were an elected official from here and went out and gave campaign speeches or gave my speech to the Chamber of Commerce, I think people would agree with 90% of what I said. Again, as we said earlier in the interview, I think we all want the same. So I leave here, Ron, quite frankly, feeling really good that I'm in tune with what a lot of people believe. Not 100%, but with what most people believe here in the Rio Grande Valley.
Thank you for joining us here on Valley News Line with our guest, Senator Dan Patrick of Houston. Till next time, adios.